good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome back to the show. Today, I've got one of my mentors, and dare I say, one of my friends, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about branding in real estate and how you can kind of build your brand and work on that marketing piece. So we're going to get into it. I'm going to let her give you her background a little bit, and then we're going to hop in. Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I would like to give to you one of the greats, Nikki Saunders, aka
What's
this is
happening?
Nikki's. This is Nikki's out here in
Hey,
the
we got
building,
sound
ladies and
effects.
gentlemen.
We got
Yes, we
sound
do.
effects.
Yes, we do.
We got sound effects. That
All
always
right,
makes me
Nikki.
happy.
So you out here killing the game in marketing and branding. That's your thing. That has been your
That
bread and
is.
butter for a little while now. Do me a favor. Give the audience your kind of your background, where you come from, and how you got where you're at now.
Kid from Queens, uh, vet, Navy vet for 9 years, and got very addicted to social media, highly addicted. And I needed to figure out how to make it into like a business, service, something of that type.
Mm.
In the midst of doing that, I got with Dr. Eric Thomas, the number one motivational speaker in the world. He saw my potential. He was like, "Hey, you want to work on my social media?" I said, "Sure, why not? It
Right.
shouldn't be hard." And from then, he had it at 300K. We grew it to 2.1 million on Instagram, 1.7 million on Facebook, and 1.2 million on YouTube. So I kind of know a few things about content and social media and stuff like that. So, just a little bit, just a little. That's all I got.
Yo, first of all, shout out to the vets. Shout out to the vets out
You know what I
there.
mean?
We appreciate you. Thank you for your service. Uh, I love how Nikki kind of slightly threw in those numbers there, but nonetheless, now you got the credentials. Now you know she's coming with heat. She knows what she's talking about. So, first question, Nikki. First question
Okay.
is, what's the difference between marketing and branding? And keep in mind, a lot of this is going to be real estate oriented for those who are listening, but these are
Yeah.
principles you can apply to anything. It just happens. This is a real estate podcast, real estate and branding podcast, so you're going to hear more about that than anything else. But
Yeah.
yeah, the question is, what's the difference between marketing and branding to you, Nikki?
Yeah, it's really simple,
Okay.
regardless of the industry you're in. Branding is who you are, and marketing is how you get that out to the people. That's pretty much it. So when you're looking at, okay, what is my brand name, colors, website, stuff like that, that's identifies who you are or who you want people to know of you,
Right.
right? Now, when we get into content, we get into ads, we get into those kinds of things and getting your message out there. That's all that is. It's getting the brand out to the world, and you're going to need marketing for that. So it's not the same. And you have to work on both, but very simple. Who you are and how to get the who you are out there.
Right.
Very simple.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I've heard it explained more complicated before, but
No,
that
I
is
don't do that. I
yeah,
don't.
that's not
There's
good.
no way, because the more complicated you get with it, can it be complicated? Yes,
Mm.
right. We could break it all the way down, but that's where it gets confusing, and that's
Right.
why some people will say, "I need help in my marketing. I
Right.
need a marketing team." No, you need to figure out your brand first, because you don't even know who you are and what you want to be known for in your industry.
Right.
So until that's done, we can't get you out there at all, because you don't know what you're supposed to be out there.
Right.
So
Do you feel like that always changes? It feels like that always changes, though. Is that something that people should kind of be aware of? Like, as they grow, does the brand change with you, or does it remain the same all the way through?
I think the foundation pretty much stays the same, right?
Okay.
But you're going to, as just human beings, just want to do other things, right? And you're going to see trending stuff, you're going to see things that are in the future. So the brand is going to change. Like, for example, Facebook is changing at this moment.
Right.
They're going to change into a whole new name, right? They don't want to be only known for social media. So, yeah, the brand is going to change, but who you are and what do you want to be known for still needs to be the foundation, and everything else is kind of just we will adjust.
Okay.
That's it.
That makes sense. So, all right. So if you know what your brand is, right? Let's
Yep.
just assume whoever's listening knows what their brand's going to be.
Yep.
How do they know the best way for them to communicate with their audience? Because you've got the introverts, you've got the extroverts, and I know this is something you're really good at and you're very
Yeah.
dialed in on. So I want to make sure I got that out of you so they can hear it. How do you
Yes.
know, what to do and how to talk to them?
Yeah, so you got to always break it down into two. Well, we'll say three. People are either introverts, extroverts, or both,
Right,
right? The
right.
ambiverts. Now, when you think of it, we instantly try to talk to who we are. So if uh, I'm an extrovert, I'm going to only speak to extroverts because I like doing videos. I'm, you know, animated sometimes,
Mm-hmm,
and that's who I am. I could do lives, that's my thing.
mm-hmm,
But there may not be enough detail or processes or step by step for my introverts. So I have to figure out I can't only be talking to half of my audience because maybe that half won't buy nothing, or maybe that half won't necessarily share it or anything like that. I have to talk to my audience as a whole. So I have to figure out how do I get the extroverts from a visual standpoint,
mm-hmm.
but how do I also connect with the introverts from a more process and detailed and safe standpoint? So there has to be a balance with how you put your message out, as
Right,
far as, all right, I got to get straight to the point and make it about them.
right.
But I also, at some point, if they want to know more, that information is there, and I make it seem as it's not just about me, it's going to be about them. The messaging always has to be about the audience so they can feel safe. So it's really looking at your messaging and kind of analyzing, am I only speaking to half or am I speaking to the whole?
Okay. So basically, like you said, it's all about who are you speaking to and how you're speaking to them.
Big facts.
So how do you know? Let's back up a little bit. Maybe I think I
Okay.
missed a piece, and that's my fault for those listening. Let's talk about the basic part of creating that brand.
Yep.
How does one decide? Okay, I'm going to do. Let's say, like we said, we're sticking with real estate as the theme. So let's say you're
Yes.
in real estate. How do I know whether I need to go to mobile homes or should I go to multifamily and do content there? How do I know what content to do if I'm in a specific niche?
So you have to look at what you have results in,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
What you have results in is pretty much going to be your niche, though you may want to do other things. The thing with a niche is not necessarily to keep you in a box, it's
Mm-hmm.
to get people to trust you, right? We
Right.
have to get people to trust us with our results and our experience first and foremost before we say, hey, go over here and go over there. So taking that niche and being like, what do I have to show the people
Mm-hmm.
that makes me the expert in this? How can I show who exactly I'm talking to? How can I show certain trigger words that are going to know that I'm talking to them?
Right.
How do I show the process as far as, buying this and selling this, and how do I get to the point where I'm showing the pure results of what I have done? These are all different content pieces that will get people to understand what we do, who we are, and that we are an expert at this particular lane in this particular niche.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to break it all the way down of what exactly do I do. And the great thing about it is maybe your audience used to be you,
Right.
and so you may need to look back at some of the beginnings of how did I get here? What made me interested in this?
Mm-hmm.
What made me want to buy this property? What made me want to get into this particular industry?
Right.
And break that process it down, whether it's more of a kind of like behind the scenes vibe,
Mhm.
or whether it's showing it through your, your journey right now, as far as here's the, here's the picture of the property, right?
Right.
And why you thought this would be a good one to purchase. What are the pros and the cons? Like, it's just a journey that people want to see, because we are attracted to journey more than this is what I have, buy this. This is what I have, buy this. We want to see how how would it be in real life through you. That's what I say.
Okay, so basically, and this is me. I'm working this out in my head as I'm talking to Nikki. Y'all just just so y'all know, this is how my mind works. So basically, it's you sharing your journey in a
Yep.
fashion that's digestible to the people who you used to be. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that
Yep.
makes sense. Okay, cool.
Doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
I was like, it makes sense to me. It got to make sense to you. I'm here
Yeah,
for you.
no, it does. It does make sense, and that's interesting because starting out with doing content and all that stuff. When I started, I was just doing face videos and walking through properties that were abandoned and creepy and sketchy. For those of
Right.
you who are out there doing that right now, make sure you have a friend with you at all times and a
Good
flashlight.
friend.
That's
A
yes,
good friend.
absolutely. Yeah, please, you don't get stuck. Anyway, but but yeah, so doing that I think was helpful with all the things that you do though. Like you do a lot, but you
Yeah.
got a team.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to start out by yourself doing some of the editing, doing some of the filming, doing some of the code keyword stuff, or is it better to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing there, I'm getting somebody to do it for you?
So I always suggest that you do start on your own. I'm not saying for a long time. It
Right.
literally could be a week. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you could be like, I'm done. But the reason why I say for you to do it on your own, because you need to understand the vision of your brand. You need to understand some of the operating procedures that is going to take to run a successful brand, whether that is the admin stuff, whether that is the editing stuff, whether that is um coming up with the website. Not necessarily do your own website, that's not what I'm saying,
That's
but
tedious.
at
That's gonna
least,
hurt.
yeah, that's a painful situation. That's painful. But like, understanding the layout of these things, because you have to be able to go to these people that you will hire eventually
Right.
with a clear vision. And if you haven't done it, you don't know what it's even supposed to be looking like. Now, what the problem is that people are scared of making it look ugly first,
Right.
right?
Right.
People expect, okay, if I get on social media, I have to look a certain kind of way. My content has to look a certain kind of way. My brand has to look a certain kind of way because of these people.
Right.
And we're not keeping in account of these people have been here 5 years. These people have been here 4 years. These people have been here 10 years.
Right.
So, of course, their brand is going to look polished. Their brand is going to look up to par because they've gone through the mistakes. They've gone through the trash, branding, content, brand confusion. They've done all that throughout their years.
Right.
You haven't. So, we can't skip, what is the process of creating a brand just because you continuously see polished brands.
Right.
So, for like, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, whether it's a couple of years, that's going to have to be your decision. Like, you have to say, okay, I know I'm not necessarily the greatest content creator. I know I have no business posting. I know I have no business writing up emails and things like that.
Right.
However, what is my deadline to where I actually hire this out? What is my deadline to be like, okay, I've done this for a month. It's time to give it up. It's
Right.
time to give this to somebody else. You do not, and what I've seen a lot of people do is that they do give it up very quickly,
Yeah.
and then they give the power of their brand to that particular person. And so the imagery may not be what they had envisioned, but because they don't know how to do it, right, they're
Right.
going to just let it rock. Now, you're not supposed to know how to do it. You're supposed to be the boss of your particular brand and your business,
Right.
right? But you are totally responsible of how it looks. You are totally responsible of what it's supposed to say, because you have documented it
Hmm.
so well based off your process. You have drew it out in the way, whether it's doodles, whether you know how to draw, you know exactly, ideally, how the brand is supposed to look, and only you do.
Right.
Once you give that power up, you're now saying you have power of my brand and how it's visually and physically going to look,
Right.
and I can't do anything about it because I never really put in the work.
Okay. Okay. I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to
All
process
right.
it. I understand. I understand. So really,
Okay. All right.
really, yeah, it's smart to let you have to do some of that work. It's just it
Hmm.
sounds to me like it's just like, when you're working on a house or you're working on a property. Sure, I can you can hire somebody to do all the paint, and you can hire somebody to do all that stuff. But if you know what kind of paint you need, it's easier for you to know when you tell that person, right? As opposed to
Right.
they're just gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna put up this black paint in the basement." Whoa, whoa, buddy! I can't sell the property like that. I need some agreeable
Right.
grays out there. So those who are in real estate investing know about that agreeable gray color. But you have that agreeable gray stuff. So okay, but so here's the next question, Nikki. Here's the next question.
Okay.
It's an easy segue. How does one remain authentic to self though,
Hmm.
with when they're in a business like real estate? So like when you're in real estate and financial world, like a lot of that is super, not that they're all uptight, but a lot of them are more stoic, shall we say, and a lot
Yeah.
of suits and dresses and dress shoes and stuff like that, where how does one remain authentic to self in that kind of environment?
So that's what it was.
Mm,
That's not how it's always supposed to be,
okay.
right? So the great thing about being authentic is that you're uniquely made. And so your brand hasn't fully been out there because we haven't truly seen it, because you haven't been walking in your authentic self.
Right.
A good example when I think about real estate of somebody who's walking in their true self is Flipping NJ, right?
Okay.
So he um he rocks all the hip hop stuff. He has the chain, everything like that. He rocks with DJ Envy.
Right.
Like, I don't, when I look at them, I don't see real estate. But my man has over like 200 properties or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
he's a
right?
beast. Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah. So just because of how you look does not negate the knowledge and the experience that you have. And who you are is going to attract a certain audience. Flippin' NJ may not necessarily, and his name is Caesar. I don't know why I keep saying Flippin' NJ. I'm such an Instagram person. Uh, Caesar is not here to talk to the masses, right?
Right.
Caesar is here to talk to people who was just like him, right? Who didn't think that real estate was even possible, who possibly maybe living in urban areas and are not given that information and that knowledge outright, right?
Right.
So, of course, there are people who are going to be with the suit, the tie, and a bit stuffy, but that's their environment,
Right.
you know?
Right.
If that's not your environment, don't feel as if you have to fit in, because you will never stand out if you fit in.
Ooh.
So, you have to look at it like, I'm trying to be the best in my game.
Right.
Now, if you're not, that's a different story, right? Then you may want to look at these different blueprints and completely copy it the way it is, because that will give you a certain level of success, right?
Mm.
But if you are trying to walk in your true authentic self, if you are the type that wears hats and J's and things like that,
Mm.
then by all means, please do that, because you're still going to attract people regardless, right?
Right.
If you are the type that wear a cowboy hat and some cowboy boots, and you're like, we're going to round up and go to these different properties, there's a there's a whole there's a whole group of people who would put on their cowboy hats
Yeah.
and go with you, right?
About to round them up.
Which round them up. Listen, horses and all. I don't know. I don't know that life, but I assume that there is somebody, if they was to do that and they
Absolutely.
documented it, somebody is going to be like, what in the world is happening? And that's the thing. People do not want to get the what in the world is happening, or
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
But you have to look at some of the greats that we've seen, whether in real estate or whether outside of real estate. We've all questioned, why are they doing this?
Right.
And then eventually we all understood it and we all try to copy. So when it comes to being authentic, you have to be okay with being, with giving that side eye, like, what are they doing? This don't even look right. I wouldn't do it this way. That's
Right.
okay. I'm not you. I do it this way, and this has been my results from it. If you have results, that's all that matters in real estate. If you have true things that people can see, like, yo, I got this many properties, I've
Right.
sold this many things, I've flipped this many things. Like, if you have that,
Mhm.
no one cares truly what you look like, how you sound, all that. They don't care. They care about, I want this. I either want this property, I want the results that you have, I want, I want to be able to create an extra stream of income.
Right.
Whatever you do, it is fine once you walk in your true authentic self. They're going to be attracted to you.
So then, does it matter if you have a lot of real estate deals done? Can you just be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna put out this content. I'm going to do it this way. Does that really make a difference to you, or
N-
does that make a difference at all?
no, so you have to be true and say, I, come on this journey with me of getting my first sale.
Right.
Come on this journey to getting my first property. We're gonna go to 70 different places. All right. I'm
Right.
gonna bring y'all with me. And the great thing about that is that there's other people who are trying to find properties.
Mm.
There's other people like you. You do not have to, and shout out to Jose, one of my partners. You do not have to be a level 10 to teach a level 2, right?
Yeah.
So if you are starting out, you are already further than the people who haven't even started at all, who
Right.
have just been consuming the content of how to do it. And they're going to consume your content because they still don't know how to do it. You are a bit different in being like, yo, I'm going to go try to find this first property. I'm going to talk to a lot of wrong people. I'm going to talk to hopefully some great people. We're finally going to sign one, and it's going to be amazing. And you
Right.
show that process, whether it's in one of these features on social media or whether you do a whole long video about it. However you feel like documenting is on you, but or you do it with pictures. But showing the people that you are not where everybody else is at makes you relatable.
Right.
If you are already showing, I got mad properties and I'm banking on this, and this is what real estate has done for me because I know those types of people, you now start to become unrelatable and not human. You are now one of those goals things that don't ever seem to be obtainable. So
Mm.
if you want to be that way,
Right.
cool. I like to be a human because that's what I am. And I
Right.
like to still be able to touch the people because without the people, I am not a brand. So, yeah, I would say do the journey.
I like it. I like it. I like it. How so, man? That was so good. Hold on, I'm stuck now. Hold on now. Okay. All right. So okay, so we figured out how to be authentic. We figured
Yep.
out. We talked about just some branding basics. Here's something else, and I got two more questions before we hit to the segments. Right.
Okay.
So first question for you is this: how much time do you spend reviewing the tape? Like one thing I don't, and I don't know, I haven't asked you and I have never talked about this before. This is
Mm-hmm.
something just popped in my head. But
Yep.
I realize a lot of people who are really good on camera or really good at carousels or really good at whatever it is when it comes to content, they
Yep.
spend a lot of time studying and on not just their content but other content. How much time do you spend studying, and then what are you studying to sharpen yourself up?
So, I study several things. So, if it's about content and what's happening and trending on social media, I spend about an hour a night consuming,
Okay.
right? If we're talking about just as far as my craft,
Mm-hmm.
in the morning, I'm definitely spending an hour learning something new, So,
Okay.
hour in the morning, hour at night. If you want to break it down, that's simple. And that's just because uh, the you can only get better with new information. People are going to go to you for that particular niche, right?
Right.
And if that niche has a ceiling at some point, they're going to go somewhere else, right?
Mm,
So, like, and I think of it like school, right?
right.
A kindergarten teacher can only teach kindergarten, right?
Right.
So if I'm trying to help people in totality in this particular industry,
Mm,
I need to continuously understand what's happening. I need to stay relevant. I need to look at the future and possibly talk about other things that are happening. I have to uh go into and do maybe some of the trends so I can know the pros and cons of it.
right.
I can also try new features just to know the pros and the cons of it. So and that happens with like any kind of industry where it's like you got to try these things out so you know how to direct your audience the right or the wrong way.
Right.
And so for me, it's very important 1 hour in the day, 1 hour at night to never sound stale, never be
Mm.
stale, and my content to continuously hit the way it does.
I got nothing. I've got nothing. I've got nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, that is gold. All right, Nikki. So last question.
Okay.
This one is on something that I think everybody's going to be able to relate to and understand.
Okay.
This is on the mentality piece. And I know you're
Yes.
again, I know you're big at this. This is like I said, everybody, she is my mentor. She is a friend. So I've learned quite a bit from Nikki. So you'll see me spit a lot of stuff she says, but this is something that I think everybody needs to hear and understand.
Mhm.
How do you deal with the mentality of fear when it comes to
Mhm.
content? Because extroverts even have that moment where like I don't know if I want to get on camera. I don't want to get on
Yeah.
camera. Introverts, of course, are going to have that fear of camera as well as fear of just script, just putting copy on the screen bothers
Yeah.
them sometimes. How do people deal with that fear?
That and it goes back to even what I said with I consume for about an hour because I see a lot of trash content.
Right.
Right? I'm just gonna be honest with you. And he knows I'm very blunt with this part.
Yep.
I see a lot of trash content. And off that alone makes me feel at ease when I doubt myself. Makes me feel at ease when I feel like I can't be on camera or can't create a certain kind of thing.
Right.
I don't look at the best kind of content off top, right? I look at what's viral. And half the time, what's viral is things that are shot by the phone that isn't the greatest quality, that sounds trash.
Right.
But it caught a moment. And whether it is entertaining, motivating, or educational, it caught a moment, right? And
Right.
so I look at those types of things and I'm like, yo, I think my stuff could be better than this. At
Right.
least just the thinking of that actually makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. I look at that and then I look at trash and I go, oh, well, if this was viral, you
Right.
know,
Right.
this could at least get a few likes. This could at least get a few views. And I don't go into creating content thinking that is going to be viral. I don't go into content even thinking that is going to reach the masses. I go into content thinking that I could at least touch one person.
Mm.
I could at least talk to somebody and it could somewhat make a little bit of sense.
Right.
Maybe not all the way sense because people process differently. But what I know I can do is share my experience, share my story, and share my knowledge. And
Right.
there's going to be somebody who's going to appreciate it. And then hopefully down the road, the masses will appreciate it. But there can't necessarily, if I do not create content, I'm doing a disservice to somebody who is really trying to learn.
Right.
I and I've said this before where the only reason I do the content I do is because when I was trying to learn this, there was nobody doing it that way.
Mm.
So I spent so many hours on YouTube and reading books and reading the blogs and everything like that when I wish I can be that hub of information. Like I wish there was a hub of information somewhere instead of me going 9 different places. So for me, or I didn't have to want to pay a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 product that literally taught me everything I already learned on YouTube.
Right.
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 So for me, I knew if I did not share what I've experienced and what I've had results in, I am doing somebody else the same disservice that I was receiving when I was learning this. So it's bigger than your fear. It's bigger than your doubt. It's really being that need that is out there for somebody else.
Right.
And then once you understand that, creating content comes very easy.
Yo, hold on. I you know what, Mike? These are the rare times on the podcast where I'm just speechless, and I don't really need to say a whole lot. As a matter of fact, I'm not gonna say nothing else. We're gonna go into segments before I look crazy and look foolish, because I'll sit here and ask Nikki a million questions, and y'all just gonna have to listen and grin and bear through it. So, Nikki, all right. So we got 2 questions we ask at the end of every show. First question is what we call troop to task. A troop to task is one thing someone can do to start moving themselves in the right direction when it particularly, in this case, comes to branding and marketing in real estate. So what would your troop to task be for our listeners?
Stop comparing. It would be that simple. Stop looking at people who have been doing it before you, because you're going to feel as if you have to copy it, or you're going to create self-doubt for yourself. Stop trying to compare and just create your brand and create your messaging, because that's what really needs to happen right now, instead of having a duplicate of the top real estate developer, agent. There's already that person, there's already that company.
Right.
There's not a you, so stop comparing.
Dope. All right, next question.
Yep.
What question do you wish you were asked more often, and what's the answer to that question? Yeah.
Oh my God.
The
What?
heat. The heat. That's the heater right
What?
there. Yeah, that's a fastball. That's the fastball.
Oh wow. The question. Oh wow. I get asked a lot of questions that I don't know if there isn't a question that get. Okay, so I would have to say this. That's a good one. I would have to say probably the. Mm, what happens when you've created for several hours, and how do you get yourself out of the slump of that content doing trash? you
Mm,
know I think I get asked a lot, as far as, how do I get my content to look this way, how do I get the results, how do I do this? But when they execute and they create it for several hours and it does 20 views, like, how do I get myself out of that feeling of, what's the point?
right.
The great thing about that time frame is that you're going to probably create something that's trash to you that's going to do amazing. I need you to create through that,
Right.
because what we expect to do very well is always going to do bad. Period. Because it's not content that we're supposed to like.
Right.
Right? We're not creating content for us, we're creating content for our audience. And so once we create through that slump and that feeling of that, we're going to create something that isn't up to par for us, but is going to be right on time for our audience. So I would say, when that does happen, when you take all the time to create and form a message and put it into a visual context, and go and post it, and it does trash, create again. That's what I said. That was a good one.
That was thank you. Yeah, that's my signature question right there. I love that question. Every guest gets that question, but you have by far and away been one of the top answers to it. That was really dope. I appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. I've had Nikki Saunders on the podcast. I can die happy now.
Oh,
I'm gonna go and plan my retirement. I'm gonna put my will in right now, so my wife will be straight when I'm gone.
That is crazy.
Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. We're definitely going to get to the FAQ, but Nikki, before we do, I want to make sure you're able to give off your tag, how people can reach out to you, how they can work with you, all that great stuff. And let's do that right now.
Yep. So on Instagram, you're probably seeing it if you're watching this, but if you're hearing this, at this is Nikki's NICKY with an S at the end. I'm highly active on Instagram. You can listen to me on my podcast, Nikki and Moose the podcast. Find that in any podcast player or nikkiandmoose.com. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about content and personal branding, deeper than the brand.com. That's my vibe.
Shout out to the Deeper Than the Brand family.
Yes,
Again,
sir.
I'm wearing this a round of applause out. Y'all don't understand. Y'all can't give me sound bites. I'm a light this thing up every time. Listen, I'm Oliver Perry. You can reach me at the Oliver Perry, info at the Oliver Perry Show. If you got any kind of value from this, make sure you leave a comment, subscribe, send a message, something. Let me know that you enjoyed it. What question you got to ask? Because you never know. I might be able to get Nikki back. I looked at
Come
Nikki to
back.
see, but yeah, see,
I'll
so
come
there we
back.
go.
I'll
Pow!
come back.
No pressure. That wasn't it. That wasn't to put her under pressure. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No,
It's just
come
how
back.
I am. But yeah, so you got questions, you want to know something, let me know. I'll definitely make sure I ask Nikki next time around. In the meantime, we appreciate you. Remember, you're better than you were, but you're not half as good as you're going to be. We're about to get into FAQs. We'll see you guys later.